This is wild swimming at home in a natural swimming pool. The centre is for swimming and the shallows all around are a watery wilderness. It's the plants and animals that condition the water. They keep it clean and clear. And here the whole pool is gently circulated using solar energy. This natural swimming pool or swimming pond cost a fraction of a commercial installation, and it was all built without requiring any specialised contractors to fit the liner or electrics or plumbing. There are no chemical pesticides added to the water, so it's completely healthy for all the creatures in and around the pond. I'll show you how I made this pool, and a new smaller plunge pool. The construction for both is the same. I'll show you my techniques for the installation, as well as the more novel ideas. How to make the swimming area with flat and smooth walls, without needing to cut the liner. Insulating the swimming zone, to help preserve the warmth gathered from the sun. A pool filter built from scrap and domestic plumbing, running silently except for the sound of bubbles. And a solar-powered circulation system so animal-friendly an adult frog can pass through without so much as a bruise.
I like to think that many of us have come to the conclusion that what makes us happy in life is being connected to what's happening around us. Plunging into a natural swimming pool and you are totally immersed in nature and the environment. A truly exhilarating experience. And owning one of these is not an impossible dream. It's really quite achievable. After all, if I've done it, then many people can do it. So I hope by showing what I've done, that will inspire you to get out there and start digging for yourself.
In the swimming zone, it's around 2 meters deep. And down here, the liner fits smoothly against the walls. Above, a sandbag wall and some oak sleepers in places where swimmers jump in. Beyond this is the planted zone, at least an equal area to the swimming zone. Here the water is around 1 meter in depth, gently sloping up to the pond edge. The changing depth giving a range of opportunities for a variety of plants. The plants and animals maintain the health of the water, oxygenating and filtering, and removing the nutrients that would otherwise allow algae to flourish. Here, nature is given the opportunity, and nature works with us. I built this pond in my spare time over a period of 2 years. But now, having refined my ideas, I could do it far more efficiently. I'm going to build another pool here, this time a much smaller and practical size for many of us. Seems digging's not going to be easy though. The plan is to make a pond as a plunge pool. The plunge zone will be 2 meters wide and 4 meters long, and just over 2 meters deep. The shallow planted zone will extend another 2 meters all around. The total size will be 6 by 8 meters. Barry has agreed to help me for the first 2 weeks. To help us get right angles for the corners, I've prepared some string.
5 metre string.
A 5 metre length, a 3 metre and a 4 metre length, the same length as the plunge zone, because conveniently a 3-4-5 triangle is a right angled triangle. And with this triangle I can define the entire area. I was going to hire in a digger and a driver, but he couldn't give me the day soon enough. But I have a backup. A little old tractor with a backhoe. I've just bought it off eBay.
Still hard.
Before you start, you should talk to your local planners to see if you need to apply for permission. You can dry hire diggers, but best of all, take your time and dig it by hand. There's no better fitness regime.
Barry, can you do just a bit more digging as you were?
The hole is now 2 meters deep.
That's a lot more gravelly, isn't it?
Yeah.
We can dig a trench for a foundation that will carry a 1 meter high concrete block wall. We've been recovering some reasonable sand and gravel for us to use later, and making separate heaps of topsoil and subsoil.
The weather's been so kind to us. It's been nice and dry. It's allowed the integrity of the hole to stay in place. If it was wet, this clay would just turn to slush, and there's no way we could dig down like this. But as it's so dry, it's almost tempting to... You could almost abandon the idea of building a concrete wall and just sculpt what we've got, the clay. But the situation could change very quickly if it rained, so I think it's best to pursue the idea of making a 1 meter high concrete wall.
I've made an important tool. I've drilled a hole through the cap of a plastic bottle and pushed in some 6mm diameter aquarium air pipe. I've also put a hole in the base to let air in. This is going to measure my levels. Barry's not convinced though.
Okay, now will it work? Barry the skeptic.
Oh, yeah, is it going to be accurate?
Well, we can just tell by looking at this, can't we? Okay, that's about... The length of that is about 5 meters. Millimeter accuracy.
Yeah, it's not over 5 metres, it's only over the width of that.
What do you mean? What? What, are you saying gravity is not going to work over this part of the pool, but it is over this part? It's going to be different.
Gravity is different in different areas, isn't it?
Oh my goodness.
Of course, I have to remember Barry's in his 70s and is far happier with a rotating prism laser level.
Okay, that's level with the top of the peg.
The top of the peg is 25 centimetres from the base and is the guide for the foundation thickness. Other pegs around the trench need to be level with this.
Yeah, right, no? I think it would have been better with the 2 bottles on. You see the level better.
Oh yeah, now it's just a matter of seeing it better. Before it was a matter of it wouldn't work at all.
I wasn't upon your leg.
Having been wound up, time to unwind with my auger. These holes will form piles in the foundation, just to help it grip the ground more. I've put them every metre or so. Barry's mixing up. 6 parts sand and gravel to 1 part cement. Cement requires an awful lot of energy to make, so I don't want to use too much on this project. 8 bags in total will be needed for the foundation. Just a small amount of water to make a pretty dry mix. It should make less of a mess. And be easier to move around in the barrow. Barry prefers the more direct approach. Our pegs show us the right level to smooth the concrete to.
Top of the peg there.
We finished the foundation, but as it happens, we don't know how lucky we've been. The concrete blocks have to be stacked in the hole ready for building the wall. Barry has taken a look at the clouds and forecast rain, so he's cleared off home. Barry's weather eye was right. And in the hole there's more water than I imagined, producing a surprising water spout. The floor is covered in clay slurry, washed from the walls. They are badly damaged by the water. Yeah, the sides have collapsed. Well, one side, so I'm a bit fed up. The signs aren't good. Barry is pensive. There's only one option. Start building the wall.
Yeah,
Pretty quick.
yeah. There's a Wednesday, I think there's going to be some more rain, isn't there?
Is there?
No, I don't think so.
But tomorrow?
Well, yeah, there's tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah, it's pretty unsettled a week.
So, with a sense of urgency, we put down the first row of blocks. I picked up some 50mm insulation from a reclamation yard. I've done some rough calculations, and insulating the wall of the swimming zone looks like a good idea, especially for a smaller pool. The ground temperature at this depth stays around 11 degrees centigrade throughout the year. In summer, the pool will be at least 10 degrees warmer. That temperature difference means that heat will be lost through the walls and floor. Insulation will reduce that loss, so the water should stay warmer. The mortar for the blocks needs finer sand. Barry's doing the mixing, 4 parts sand to 1 part cement. A string tied to a couple of bricks in the corners is the guide for placing the blocks in a nice straight line. Although this wall will ultimately be hidden behind the liner, it's important to keep it all straight and level. If you start letting it drift, progressive rows will be even more deviant. The mortar ratio seems more variable.
About 4 in 1.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's about 5.
Or sort of 5.
Yeah.
Barry's mortar proportions are difficult to pin down, just like our visitor.
Come on back down again.
Fortunately, the rain has stayed off, and the wall is high enough for me to start removing the rest of the topsoil. This is the profile I'm aiming for. The swimming depth is 2 meters. The block wall 1 meter, and then a sandbag wall on top, finishing 1/2 meter from the surface. Once backfilled with gravel and subsoil for the plants, the slope to the edge of the pond will be around 1 meter in 4. I've made a trench 2 meters from the edge of the plunge pool to define the area of topsoil to be removed. Barry's finishing the wall. We built it up to 5 courses of blocks, just over 1 meter high, and all insulated. Although this topsoil is pretty poor, it needs taking off and heaping up out of the way. It will be needed at a later point for the landscaping. Judging by this performance, you're probably thinking getting professional help for the digging may be well worth the money. For a pond this size, with a proper digger and driver, I reckon it should come to a total around £300. After the mauling by the machine, it looks a bit of a mess, but at least we are beginning to see the shape. All that's needed now is some hand crafting. Barry has gone off to work on a proper job, and I am left alone with a couple of chickens and my bottle. Actually, I've since found out it's called a bunyip. I've mounted the bunyip on a post corresponding to 2 meters depth. The The pegs are showing me what will be the finished water level.
As this site is on a slope, I need to build up this side of the pond to this level, because that corresponds with 2 meters depth of water, so it needs to be that level or above. So I've got to build the earth up here. I thought what would help me are these insulation panels. I got them from the reclamation yard really cheap because they came from an old turkey shed. I thought I could just put these here and build up the earth either side, and that would form a retaining wall for me.
These sheets are just what I had to hand, but you could use a variety of materials. Of course, if your site is level, you don't need them, and you've got a bit less work to do. I'm piling up subsoil either side and starting to make a smooth bowl shape. If the subsoil was less stable, I could have made the wall stronger. By stacking the blocks face down, this would make the wall around twice as thick. Of course, it would need twice the number of blocks and a wider foundation.
The good thing about having an edge is now I've got something to discriminate between my rubbish stuff and the good sand.
The section that was washed away in the rain has been filled and needs tamping to help it settle.
To trim off this insulation, I'm using a kitchen knife. It's a not very good one. Certainly won't be much good after this, but it does the job.
When the liner goes on, we need the ground underneath to be firm, otherwise the weight of water will put it under stress. The pond's bowl shape is getting smoother by the hour, and it's a very satisfying sight for a pond maker to see a pile of sharp flints safely outside the perimeter. I'm having bunyip withdrawal symptoms, so it's back out again. I'm checking levels just to make sure this bowl shape is going to hold water. It's very important to fill behind the wall with sand or subsoil. When the pond holds water, if there's a void, the wall won't be able to transfer the pressure from the water to the ground behind it. Potentially, the wall could crack. Probing with the handle of my tamper, I can feel a large hole here. I'm trying a trickle-down approach with a clay slurry chaser. Felix thinks the important bit is to do the outside of the pond.
A big void. Ooh. Bit of a sloppy cob mix, isn't it? This is how not to build a cob wall. I tell you what. Oh. So Alison's very kindly cleaned the bottom so it looks a lot better down there now. We're just going to go around the outside smoothing as much as possible, and hopefully the rain will keep off, and that will allow us to get the underliner there, and then the liner. Once we get the liner in, we can sort of relax, but we can't at the moment.
I'm mixing up again to make a foundation for the overflow drain. I've dug down to firm subsoil. And I'm adding another piece of insulation board just to make the wall a bit stiffer. The foundation for the drain has hardened. I'm taking off the rough edges to be as kind as possible to the pond liner. Not content with that, I'm also giving it a comfortable bed of freshly sieved sand. I'm going to share the delights of the bunyip with Jasper, my eldest son.
Yeah, it's come down.
Okay then, can you mark the water level on the insulation?
We're marking the maximum water level on the insulation boards.
Very good.
It also serves as a simple physics lesson. I'm learning quite a lot.
Sorry about that.
Now I know what level to trim the boards. Smooth sand makes for a nice smooth bottom. Yes, it's more of this stuff, reclaimed from the turkey sheds of East Anglia. Just a topping of hand sieve sand brushed into the cracks and corners, and it's all prepared for the brooding presence, the underliner. The pond is 6 meters wide, but goes down 2 meters and then another 2 meters back up, so I need 10 meters width of underliner. The fabric is called Polyfeld TS60, 260 grams per square meter. It's a non-woven synthetic material. I'm cutting enough lengths to cover the whole surface and go up and over the outer edge. To fully protect the liner, the sheets need to be stuck together to form one continuous protective layer. It will also help them stop blowing away. But glue is not the answer.
All you need is one of these. There we go. Look at that. make it a bit better. Stuck.
Another length of underliner lengthways, and the bottom will have 2 layers. I've also put another layer on the top edge of the wall and in the corners. Now we're more than fully covered. A large, expensive piece of plastic is arriving.
Okay, lovely, there's fine, thanks.
It's the liner.
Thank you very much.
Lovely, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's early morning. Cue the cockerel. I've not used this product before. It's a synthetic EPDM rubber called Pond Guard, manufactured by Firestone. It's sold as seamless, but I think these are seams.
Now, I've got no problem with the seams actually leaking. I don't think they'll do that because they've been done in a factory. But it's when I come to fold it, if I'm trying to make a nice, neat fold and I hit a seam, that might just make it a bit awkward. So I'm going to give them a ring and see why I've got seams in my roll.
It seems they're not seams. They're called joins. They've been fused as part of the manufacturing process, so can't fail. I figure they should also fold reasonably well, so it's full steam ahead. The liner is just over 15 metres long and 12 metres wide.
There we go. Whoa, she's away.
It's 1 millimetre thick and weighs 232 kilograms. A team of 10 men is recommended to move this around. Otherwise, find a friend and a stick. The liner is rolled by the suppliers in such a way that it needs to be positioned lengthways in the centre of the pond. Then it can be unfurled to one side and then the other. You'll have a huge job if you roll it out the wrong way and have to rotate it afterwards. It's hard enough doing it the right way.
Way, got one end. Oh, one side. Well, we've got a half done. Right, here we go. Well, we've got water in it.
This heaving and pulling is self-explanatory, but I think it's useful to watch the struggle.
You all right?
No, it's fine.
Well, I think that's it.
Well, not quite yet.
Right, where'd you begin? Yeah, do you? If you're directly in line with this wall, just the edge there, what we're going to need is a fold which is actually half that height. So that's about 1 meter 10. So it's going to be about 55 centimeters. So we can just do it roughly. So get roughly. That's it. Yeah. And this will roughly sort of work out, and then we can fine tune it later. That'll do for now, yeah.
I've made a portable and quite stylish tool. I call it my sandbag machine. It helps me fill sandbags, and in return I don't strip it back down to be a sack trolley. The sandbags are holding the liner roughly in place, but I'm aiming for smooth walls and floor, so this involves some mega origami. To help me form folds in the corners, I've got a length of rainwater pipe resting on a sandbag in the corner. The other end of the rope is held by today's glamorous assistant, this bucket. First of all, the width of the overlap, which is half the height of the wall, needs the creases taken out. It takes massaging and poking to get it flat, and of course, my sandbags.
I'm just pushing, just taking out as many creases as I can. Stand at the bottom of the liner, just roll it up, a bit like you're smoothing out wallpaper. A bit heavier. Okay, push it over into the corner. That's the stuff underneath. Keep your finger there, and then it's a matter of just pulling this back until you get a nice overlap. There we go, nice and flat. Trick is to hold that corner there because you're aiming for a triangle. And make it flat there.
There's also a sneaky little fold at the back. When finished, we end up with a kite-shaped fold, which protrudes above the wall level. The overliner is the same fabric as the underliner. On the top of the wall, I'm folding it back on itself to form a nice neat edge and a double thickness. I only need to lay it around the outer part of the pond. I'm filling these Hessian sandbags with sand and gravel and some cement. Around 6 parts sand and gravel to 1 part cement. I'm not adding any water. These are going to make a wall which continues the block wall, but above the liner. I've been so long in this hole, I've lost track of my family.
Where are you? This is where the pad is for the exit drain. The concrete pad is down there. It's under the liner and the underliner. I've just put a ring of sandbags there and another couple of layers of overliner there, just so I can put this concrete in.
And at this stage, I also need to incorporate a splendid device.
Right, over here we have my pond circulation system, which consists of nothing more than a 110mm drainage pipe and a 90-degree bend. This is going to fit around here in the sandbag wall when I've finished it, and it's going to be powered by nothing more than air.
The drainage pipe bend goes through the sandbag wall into the bed of gravel under the planted zone. It's the plant root systems that condition the water. To move this biologically cleaned water into the swimming zone, we're not going to use a conventional pump. We're going to use bubbles. This is an air stone used to aerate aquariums, and this is a diaphragm air compressor, also for aquariums. If I drop in a piece of rainwater guttering pipe, the rising column of bubbles accelerates the water inside the pipe. The water is forced over the top and consequently drawn in at the bottom. The pump uses only 60 watts of power, and it's enough to provide circulation to a fairly large pond. If we place the air stone inside the bend, the column of bubbles rises up, taking the water with it. The water is gently drawn from the gravel bed under the plants. The flow of water enhances the plant's ability to absorb the nutrients, making life hard for algae, as well as filtering the water. The sandbag wall is to retain the banks of gravel, and the overliner protects the liner below. As well as the drainage pipe fitting, I've also put in strings and 15mm plastic plumbing pipes in various places, just in case I need them later. I've pulled back the liner behind the exit drain to make a 110mm hole. I'm just using a hacksaw blade.
Just hold this up to measure. We've got plenty of slack there, and I'll give it some slack, plenty of slack here. So I think if I aim for the hole to be about there, then that should work out about right. That's the centre. Okay, so I've got it marked there. I've got a bit of pipe here, a smaller bit of pipe, just so I can See what I'm doing? Now I'm going to cut a hole, but it's going to be smaller than that. So I'm going to radiate inwards. I've got a nice sharp knife now, thank goodness. Okay, that should do us.
To seal it to the pipe, I'm just going to use waterproof duct tape. That's very sticky.
Well, it's sticky. Right. Okay, that feels nice and snug. Couple of slack there.
The fabric overliner will be protecting the liner, but I need to cut a slot to let the pipe through.
Okay.
And just for good measure, another piece of geotextile to cover that slot. I've got some more dry mixed cement to heap on top. Some gentle patting, and the exit drain has made an exit.
There's 3 different sorts of shingle from different quarries. Which is the smoothest to stand on? So what do you think, Theo?
This one.
Yeah? Okay. Proper scientific experiment, so don't let Theo influence you.
Probably the last one.
The last
But
one?
I think the last two are very similar.
Okay, decision made. This is the smoothest shingle I could find locally. It's mainly nice rounded stones that are easy to walk on and won't puncture the liner. Marine shingle would be smoother, but I'm wary of the environmental impact dredging for shingle is having on our seas. I've bought 20 tons, but only half is needed for the pond. The kids are hoping to find dinosaur fossils in there. I picked up these oak sleepers from the reclamation yard. They're rejects, but I love them. They will make a fine finish to the top of the wall. They need a few joints, so any carpenters watching, Look away now. "10mm stainless steel rod is driven in to pin them together, and wedges are placed here and there to keep the frame level. I'm tidying up a gap under the yoke, pushing in a sandbag loosely filled with sand and cement. I've left haunches on the yoke frame. Sandbags will secure it and stop the frame from floating when it's submerged in water. A few oxygenating plants just to get the biology going in the rainwater collected at the bottom. These are my flexible drainage pipes. I pulled them out of a skip. One end is shoved into the fitting that goes through the wall. The flexible pipe is laid around the planted zone of the pond, and the pipe will be buried in a layer of gravel, allowing access to the conditioned water under the plant roots. The pipes are taped together, and I've bunged in fabric to block up the end. The pipe needs to be perforated flexible drainage pipe, but that wasn't in the skip, so I'm perforating. This is a stainless steel drum taken from a washing machine. It will soon be part of my pool filter. It needs a hole in the bottom. I'm using a 70mm diameter core drill. And here a former fruit juice barrel. I found it in some rubbish on an industrial estate. It also needs some 70mm holes. The plastic is really quite thick, and the whole barrel very strong.
Okay, here we've got the fruit juice container that I got out of a skip. Drill the 2 holes in it. Piece of 70mm drain pipe. So shove in there. Another piece with a right angle bend that goes in there. Then we've got the washing machine drum. Drill the 70mm hole in so it should all fit. And now we've made a filter. What do you think?
Bit ordinary.
Bit ordinary?
Rainwater is collecting in the pond. Once the liner is in, if you take your time finishing the pond, the rainfall might have filled it by then. The filter needs some ballast in the bottom to keep it in position. And another pipe. A bed of gravel also needs spreading over the flexible drainage pipes, and another layer of geotextile. I'm just holding it down with some gravel, but subsoil will go on top of this for the plants to grow in. However, my heap of subsoil seems to have some creatures in it, so I'll get on and trim the liner. I ordered a liner that was slightly bigger than I need, but I figured it was best to err on the side of caution. The trinity of the underliner, the liner and the overliner can now be neatly tucked along the edge. The creatures have left my heap of subsoil. I'm putting a bend on the exit drain. That will just help keep out the soil. Time to bring in some specialised gravel moving equipment. The exit drain needs a small extension.
I just got a little bit of oil and I just rubbed it around the lip there. I think there's some specialist stuff you can use, but this is just a hand. And then that goes in easily. But with a bit of oil, I suppose it'd help if I had the pipe straight to begin with.
The ground level is higher on this side of the pond, so I'm using some of my oak sleepers to form a step up. Having jammed the liner down with blocks and bricks, I'll just backfill with gravel.
The important thing about the edge is that the liner must end up in a vertical position. You don't want water seeping from the outside into the pond. It'll have nutrients in it from the topsoil, and it's no good for wildlife ponds, and it's no good for natural swimming pools. Fortunately, there are many ways to achieve that. I just used a piece of insulation, and so the sandwich of underliner, liner and overliner went up and over, and I backfilled there. Alternatively, if you weren't concerned about using too much concrete, which I am, You could make a concrete bed, or mortar bed. I've just represented it by a block there. On top of it, put a block, and then have your liner come up like that. The best thing for wildlife would be to then backfill that with shingle or some other substrate, or you could face it with timber. You'd have to fix it through there, of course. Another method to achieve it is to use a roll of this. It's damp-proof, of course, used in building walls. Hammer in stakes along the perimeter of the pond and nail this to the face of it. Then your liner just comes up like that. Fill there with your pond shingle or substrate, backfill with topsoil. And there's a really low energy, quite simple way of doing it.
This bend is conveniently fitted with an inspection plug. I can fit my aquarium air stone with just a 5mm hole. The aquarium suppliers also provided me with the 6mm air pipe.
So my 6mm pipe, shouldn't be that much. The pipe does it, just to hand. 6.5mm through there. Okay, and then just come to our pipe. Now I need a 5.5mm drill. This just needs to be a small piece. That will just fit. There we go. Very nice snug fit there. Some inserts in there. That just fits on. There we go, ready to go.
Put the inspection cover back on and the air stone fits nicely inside the pipe. This pipe needs a bit of extending, but my filter needs pruning. And some more rainwater guttering system fittings, a 112.5 degree bend and a universal hopper. My universal level measuring machine, or bunyip, is back out, checking the high watermark on my barrel. More guttering fittings.
Got a couple of 90-degree bends, length of pipe, some offset bends, slightly more than 90 degrees, 2 of them. Good thing about putting 2 offset bends together is that you can then get almost any angle.
Another short length of rainwater pipe, and the structure of the filter is complete. Just a couple more holes for the air supply. More 6mm aquarium airline pipe is fitted and threaded through, ready for the air stone. This time I've got a round one, just for the sake of variety. There's no need to fix this air stone, so I'm just going to rest it at the bottom of the pipe. This is how it should work. The air bubbles form a rising column of water, creating a float through the barrel. Water from the pond passes into the washing machine drum, where it can be filtered. I'm trimming the 15mm domestic plumbing pipe, which is serving as my air supply, and connecting it up to all the other potential outlets. The pipe runs around what will be the planted zone and leads to an air pump some distance away from the pond. The filter's washing machine drum needs some filtering fabric.
I've just got a piece of scrap underliner, geotextile, put a hole in it. Push it inside the washing machine drum. push that inside filter, spread out the fabric. That'll be a nice filter, and for what it's worth I just put that on there.
The filter is ready for its air supply and ready for water, although I'm not entirely sure this thing is gonna work. Safety is always the most important consideration, and it's vital to have a fence around the pond. I'm using chestnut paling. In total, I have around 30 metres. That will only just about go round.
Ah, there we go.
The pond is in danger of looking a bit twee, so I've added some architectural brutalism. On the other hand, the water collected in the pond already has a less than glamorous white powdery film. This is quite normal for a very new pond. Rainwater is the best water for a pond. All the water I've collected from the roof I am pumping in. Rainwater is soft water and contains very few nutrients. The spare outlets for the air feed are capped up with plastic stop ends, and the folds in the corners will soon be squashed flat with the increasing water pressure. I've exhausted my supply of roof water, and I would normally wait for rainfall to fill the pond, but because of the pressure of filming, I'm having to raid my existing pool. I've also raided it for some plants. This lily is Nymphea alba. And most importantly, some oxygenating plants. Alodia crispa is not native to Britain, but grows quickly, removing nutrients from the water. It can then be easily harvested for composting. The sunshine reminds me of my pond circulation system.
Okay, this is my solar experiment. So this is a 12-volt solar panel here, feeding into a battery, lead-acid battery. That's charged up by the panel. That feeds an inverter, which converts 12 volts DC into alternating current, 220 volts, which is exactly what this pond pump needs, the diaphragm air pump. So plug that in there, take my air pipe from the pond, push that in there, and let's see what happens. Deep joy.
The pump uses 60 watts of power. The solar panel delivers 12 watts in full sunlight. So with just this one panel, I could have the pump on for around an hour a day. Under the pallet I use as a lid. Inside, we see it flowing nicely. What a relief. It works. It will take at least a year for the plants and animals to become reasonably established. Only then will the pond water clear properly. The pond has cost £2,000 for all the materials and taken 8 weeks of work, but now we've made it.
Right, there we go. The plunge pool is finished. Oh, I suppose there's just one more thing. Wow,
Dive in with your clothes.
it's lovely.
What about the bathroom?
Ah.
Is it warm?
What?
Is it warm?
not too bad.